towards the basket, misses one.
Hello once again, and welcome to another episode of Inside IUE Sports. I'm your host, Caleb McGillock. We've got another great show on the way for you today with spring sports in full swing now. We've got track and field guests, and we've got tennis guests on our show today. And our first guest today, Tyler Hoodlebrink from track and field. Tyler, thanks for joining me.
Oh, no problem.
Well, just tell us a little bit about how the season's going so far.
Well, as of Saturday, we completed our second meet. Everyone's kind of back into the full swing of things after taking a month off for the indoor season. Overall performance was pretty good this past weekend. There was a few ups and downs, obviously, and I mean, dealing with the weather, it was pretty cold, sitting at around 45, 50 degrees pretty much all day. But compared to last year, 50-mile-an-hour winds,
Right.
It's an improvement in general.
Well, you're a thrower for the team, and typically in the past I've talked with, the runners about how that cold weather affects them. How does it affect you as a thrower?
It's both worse and better at the same time. Runners, they obviously have to deal with the wind, like running into it or, getting boosted by it, whereas throwing, it's going to affect the implements. Discus especially, like if you have a headwind, it can be extremely beneficial, or it could just completely kill your throw and throw it straight to the ground. Shot put, it's not going to affect it very much. Same thing with hammer, because they're both very heavy. Javelin will also especially be affected. But as far as temperatures are concerned, really we just put on some long tights and then we're good to go. As long as we just keep moving around. But I know the rain and weather will definitely affect, like if there's a wet ring, that's when it gets really bad, because obviously you got to push off and land and things like that, so you don't have spikes. You got really flat, smooth soled shoes.
Right.
So if you don't have your footing, exactly right, you're going to slip and fall. Which I mean, I've seen it happen plenty of times, and I actually have an injury from high school from slipping and falling and busting my elbow open. It required a few stitches. It took me out a couple weeks, but. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk more about the season here in a few minutes, but let's go ahead and talk a little bit about you and how you got here. Wayne County native from Hagerstown. Mm-hmm. Transferred here after a couple years over at Rose-Hulman over in the Terre Haute area. Just tell us a little bit about why you made that change and how you ended up here.
Well, initially out of high school, I took a lot of shop classes, and I was very hands-on. Like I wanted to do something that was associated with tinkering with things. I was obsessed with Legos when I was a kid, and I still play with Legos periodically now. So,
right.
It's just a fun little thing to do. So, the tinkering aspect was what really got me, and mechanical engineering was really where I could apply that, where I could design something where you could, tinker with it in depth, in a different way. But once I got to Rose, the first year, it wasn't too bad. It was a lot of prereq classes, kind of got, me introduced to what the field was going to be. But as the year went on and moving into sophomore year, it was a lot more math heavy than I really cared for. And I tried, I think, 3 separate times, leaving, coming back, before I finally just decided that mechanical engineering wasn't for me.
Right.
And I would have stayed at Rose had they had anything besides engineering, but the fact of the matter is the only other major they had was biology, and even then it was kind of like a side major. No one went to Rose-Hulman for biology.
Right.
So with my decision made as late as it was, because I think it was just decided in July of 2015, after my summer course, that I wasn't going to go back to Rose. Mm-hmm. And about the only place I could go was IU East. So I applied to IU East, planned on, just completing my degree, potentially going into what I was going to go here either way to get prepared for physical therapy, because at that point I was like, it's either athletic training or physical therapy. Mm-hmm. So once I decided that IU East was the place, I was like, I'm just going to finish it, get my degree, move on to grad school, whatever. Actually had no initial plans of doing track and field other than, just staying in the weight room. Mm-hmm. So, but that was an interesting day. I came out of the weight room, and I actually ran into the athletic director, Joe. Mm-hmm. And he saw me and he's like, "Do you throw?" Like he asked me specifically if I threw, and I'm like, "Well, I did at Rose." And he's like, "Well, you should go talk to Dave." And actually, it was the call-out meeting that day, so
Okay.
I went and sat in there, and I think at that point I decided I was going to do track right here.
Cool. Well, definitely it's paid off for you. Your
Oh, yeah.
academic all-conference last year. Tell us about that.
Academic all-conference. Well, since I changed majors, a lot of my prereqs still had to be completed, or a lot of the early like freshman courses. So I was the oldest person in most of my classes by like a good 4 years.
Right.
So that was a little disconcerting initially. But ever since I got here, I've taken a minimum of 17 credit hours each semester, on top of 2 jobs, on top of a 3rd job that's kind of hit or miss depending on how available I am. So Papa Murphy's up in the Math and Science Center and substitute teaching at Hagerstown High School.
Okay.
On top of track, on top of all my
Right.
classes. So balancing it, time balance is pretty difficult to manage sometimes, especially if I kind of drag my heels and procrastinate a little bit.
Right.
But overall, it's been a lot of just talking to people and working with people, and like if I have questions, going to my professors and actually going to SI. I spent a lot of time in SI and actually spent last year in this previous semester as an SI for biology.
Okay.
So it really is just staying involved in your classes and not just doing them when you have to. It's
Right.
putting the extra effort outside of the class and studying. Really.
Right. Well, you've got outdoor school records in discus and shot put, and indoor records in the shot put and weight throw. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, actually, the discus one got broke by the freshmen this last meet.
Okay.
So, or not last meet, the meet before that, but that's beside the point. So hammer, that one, I'll talk about the hammer one just because that one's the most interesting. I actually didn't pick up hammer until 2 weeks before conference last year. Hadn't even touched it.
Really?
Like, they wanted me to throw it, and I was like, I'm not going to worry about it. I want to get shot and disc down. Well, I picked it up 2 weeks before conference, just kind of more or less just spinning in a circle and throwing it as far as I could. No sense of form whatsoever. And I actually made it to finals at conference, and I was sitting in like 6th place with my throw going into finals. And then I just got in my head on my very last throw. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to spin as fast as I can, throw all form out the window, and see what happens. And it moved me up to 4th place in the
There you
school
go.
record, or just below the school record, I guess, because I don't think I actually have the hammer record. But weight throw and shot put, all those, yeah. The most recent with shot put, the indoor throw at Anderson, that's actually how I injured my hand, was
Okay.
the 15.06, I believe is what the distance was. Everything just came together except, the flip at the very end, and
Right.
that did something to my middle finger. I kind of suspect that I dislocated and relocated it in like just that instant. But, so that's lingering, but extend my indoor record a little bit. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm not upset.
Right.
It's just kind of a minor annoyance at this point.
Well, you are a senior this year,
Mm-hmm.
so what's the plan come the end of May?
After May, I actually plan on changing up my training style. Since track is done, I'm going to focus on losing weight and getting a little bit more healthy, because I'm sitting at 245 right now. I kind of want to get around 200, which is a good walking around weight at 6 feet tall. But with grad school coming up at the University of Indianapolis next fall for physical therapy, I don't feel like I'm going to have a whole lot of time once classes start kicking in, because 21
Right.
credit hours in a grad school setting is going to be difficult,
Right.
to say the least. So my hope is I can still stick with like my own personal training and potentially compete unattached, depending on how strenuous the schooling is there. Because I have run into a few guys at University of Indianapolis that are competing unattached but training with the University of Indianapolis team.
Okay.
That, and I know someone from Hagerstown that's actually starting in the fall as an undergrad.
Okay.
That he's going to be thrown there for shot put, and I think they're going to teach him hammer, but we'll see.
All right. Well, you got that summer job too, right?
Yeah, a few summer jobs potentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are those?
So I'm looking at going back to Draper, which is a factory out in Spiceland that produces projection screens and a few other small products like basketball backboards. Like, I know, completely unrelated, but
Right.
it's a company. They'll do what they do. But I've worked there the past few years, decent pay, and I potentially have the chance for overtime depending on what departments need help and where I'm actually initially stationed. But that'll be the bulk of my work, 40 hours a week minimum. and they're pretty lenient because it's summer help.
Right.
I'd just be like, hey, I want a week off, and they'll be like, oh, okay, go ahead. But I also plan on trying to stay at Papa Murphy's maybe 1 or 2 days a week, or potentially the weekends, because I need to, like, that's the big thing, the big bulk of my summer is going to be saving up for grad school and the apartment down payment and moving to Indianapolis and all that.
All right. Anything else you'd like to add about track today?
Well, we have a meet at Marion on Friday, so Marion University in Indianapolis. If anyone wants to go out, they can come out and support us.
Right.
We'd greatly appreciate it. No, I think that's about it.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today, and best of luck throughout the season. Maybe I'll see you back out on the factory floor this summer.
Hell yeah.
All right. Well, there you have it from Tyler Hoodlebrink, talking a little bit about how he got to IU East, as well as a little bit about his track and field career here as well. When we come back, it's time for tennis on the other side of the break for Inside IU East Sports.